All right, it looks like we are live now, guys. This is exciting. Hope we'll have some folks come in here, have some people watching. But thank you all for coming to today's webinar. This is about enabling forest regeneration with Open Forest Protocol. And we have some awesome project lineups today from different parts of the world across, a few different continents and countries. And then we have some of our own team here as well to talk about OFP and, kind of what's going on in this space. So I'll give a quick intro. I'm Kate, I'm head of communications. And I'll let everyone else go for it and introduce themselves. If you want to start, Lillian.
Absolutely. Great to meet you all. I'm Lillian, Regional Partnerships Lead at Open Forest Protocol for Africa.
Awesome. Arlene, you're up next.
Yes, so I'm Arlene, one of the co-founders and the Chief Climate Officer of Open Forest Protocol, and super happy to be here with you today. And I guess I'll pass it to Daniel.
Okay, then, I'm Daniel, a sustainability manager at Plant My Tree. We are a afforestation and reforestation organization in Germany, but also we expanded to Serbia. That's where projects are, and why we have over 110 projects all over Germany, 9 in Serbia. And yeah, there's more to come. I'm happy to present one of ours today.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Daintree, if you guys want to go.
Yep. Hi, Connie and Dave, partners in business, partners in life. So yeah, far north Queensland, Australia, tropical, and it's sort of not looking as cold as any of you. We've been doing RevEg for 10 years now, and really excited to be sharing our current project, and our first project listed with OFP.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes, first of many projects or stages.
Aldo, I think you're up next.
Yeah, myself, Aldo. Hi, everyone. I'm an entrepreneur from the renewable energy sector, and I've launched a series of nature projects, including this carbon farming project here in central Italy, Riserva Martignanello. I'll talk to you about.
Okay, awesome. Thank you guys all for coming. To get a bit of kind of background context going for OFP and projects and what we do, I'd love, Arlene, if you could kind of give a brief overview of Open Forest Protocol from the CCO perspective, the climate perspective, and kind of just give a background to OFP for the forest side, for the forest regeneration side, and all of like the different climate folks that might be watching or listening later.
Yes, so just like a brief overview, so Open Forest Protocol provides measurement, reporting, and verification tools for forest projects, restoration projects all over the world, regardless of their size and location. And on top of that, we enable these projects to also access carbon financing in the carbon markets if they're eligible. And so I think one of the biggest challenges in this industry are all the upfront costs that prevent smaller size or medium-sized projects to access the markets. And we've seen incredible projects with co-benefits, social implications, and so on. And that's really why we wanted to be able to also include these smaller scale projects. So basically, OFP is really for everyone. It's targeted towards a more inclusive carbon market, a more transparent also carbon market, to increase the quality and also increase the pricing of the carbon credits, to kind of have this like nature economy that we're lacking for the future. So that's a big picture overview.
Awesome. Thanks, Arlene. That was awesome. Lillian, I'd love to hear, before we get to the projects and building the excitement, what your role as like a PO on the PO team is, and how, kind of give us an overview of the project landscape, and what it's looking like, with projects onboarding to OFP right now, or anything that you really feel important to share about, new projects coming onto the protocol.
Right. So what I'm mainly focused on is bringing on partnerships across the African continent. So our major pipeline right now, or our major partners, are local communities who are actually at the forefront of climate action. So we have the Bamandiko community in Cameroon. We have a community in Tanzania, and they're in Kenya, Uganda, and we'll be seeing more along the Francophone West Africa as well. And so these are communities who have been working to restore degraded ecosystems within their respective regions, and who are looking for opportunities not only to get incentivized to continue this restoration activities, but to also improve their livelihoods as a community. So this is what my role is about. It's about partnering with communities, giving them the opportunities to access carbon financing within the voluntary carbon market, and supporting them along their journey for the long term.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lillian. That was a really nice intro. So we have 3 projects here today with us that we are excited to have them, share their stories and their perspectives and what they're doing on the ground. So without further ado, I will let folks jump right into it. Daintree, would you guys want to go first with your visual presentation and introduction real quick? I'll share your screen for you.
Sure.
Okay.
So,
Sharing that.
Yep. So,
That's good.
Yeah, this Bells Road project, all up this, the project itself is going to plant out 6 hectares of native rainforest local to the area. Everything we plant is based on local mapping, Queensland mapping, which gives us lists of what species should be there. Any of our plantings, we're planting, upwards of 70 species at a time, all mixed in amongst. So Zone A of the project is what we've already got listed with OFP, is the first 0.8 of a hectare. The blue area that you can see on the screen there, and the 3 little green dots with the trees are the 3 sample plots that we're measuring and monitoring out of that. That blue area has 6,200 trees in it, and the entire project, once it's finished, will be about 40,000 trees. So, yeah, basically we were approached by the landowners to plant this. We've been re-vegging in a lot of areas, and they heard about us, contacted us and said, would you like to plant this area? And their reason for planting it is actually farmland that's all been cleared in the past when Australia got settled by white man. And but the actual area that we're doing is very low-lying, very wet, and it's not conducive for any, farming of cattle and horses. They get hoof rot, and these owners have only bought the property a couple of years ago and said, it's wasted land, we want to do something, put it back to what it should have been for the wildlife and so on. So, yeah. That's
Wonderful.
Yes, that map just puts it into context with like Connie said, the blue bit is now fully planted, which is Zone A, and the rest will be divided into another 5 or 6 zones. We'll be starting prepping the next one fairly soon. So that just puts it in context.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. That's incredible. It's a great number of trees. My goodness. Let's jump over to Germany, to Daniel. I will share your screen, and I'd love to hear about Plant My Tree.
Yeah, as I already mentioned, thank you. We have lots of projects all over Germany. So far, we have 3 under OFP, but you see all of our projects are scattered all over Germany. And what we do usually is we buy plots of land that are available on the market, either auctions or through contacts. Maybe there was a forest owner who harvested the trees and it's not affordable for him to replant, and then he says, okay, I would like to sell it. And so we are in contact with many of them, and then we can buy some plot of land. Yeah, and so far we've grown that big. We started with OFP beginning of the year with 3 projects in Germany. Habertoft, that's up north, Jünkerath, that's west, and Großlindau, our smallest. I will tell you a little bit about it. Yeah, that's the east of Germany, not so far from Berlin, the capital. And yeah, just to conclude or to complete the list, we have also 2 projects in Serbia, 11 hectare size, one in Valjevo and Studenica, that is roughly 2 hectares. Yeah, there's also more to come. But yeah, let's jump to Großlindau. As you can see here, it's just a small plot. It's what Aurelien already said. It's also for small landowners, and we grabbed the opportunity to launch the 0.3 hectare size big plot of land. It's grassland. Yeah, nothing happened there before, so it was never been afforested, and you can see the neighbor plots here on the left. It is it's all monoculture. It's pine trees, and that is what you have usually in Germany. And what we would like to do, and what we plan to do, is to plant a biodiverse forest around here. And that is how it looks so far. We just started, as you can see, with black alders, also English oaks, coastal firs, Douglas firs, birch cherry. These are the trees we planted here. And as you can see here in the middle, that is what it usually looks like around Berlin. You have like forest factories. That is what was the area and the land was designed for, to produce these forests, and so that you can harvest the wood and sell it. But we want to have something completely different, because we see the advantage of having a biodiverse forest. Usually what we do is we plant as a team event. We invite companies, also students, sometimes also people from the area, to help us with the planting. It is a different site, but I think you can see it quite clearly and gives a good impression how we do the planting. A little bit of explanation. You see the right here, this is our CEO, the founder of Plant My Tree. And yeah, then we do it as a team. The planting, here you can see with maple trees. If we are lucky, we have a beautiful autumn day like this. Yeah, so far it's a quick intro.
Awesome. Thank you for those pictures. That was really beautiful. And it's great to see the small scale as well happening in so many places. And I think all of your projects are bringing so much value in that regard in your own parts of the world, which is wonderful. Last but not least at all, Aldo, I'd love to hear your intro about your project and what you guys are up to in Italy.
Yeah, I will share my screen as well, because it's useful to use sort of geolocation. So tell me, I should just press and present?
Yes, press present, and maybe it'll show up for me on my end.
So I've been developing larger reforestation projects in the kind of 100 hectares or more region, and those have access to capital from institutional investors and the usual accreditation schemes. But what I instead wanted to focus on with this particular project is the smaller plots, and believe that there's so much impact that the sector can have if we can make the small projects work economically. And so when we launched our carbon farming project, we took over. There you go. We took over a farm which is located here in the central region of Italy. And in this farm, there have been many agricultural activities. So in these fields, we are experimenting with regenerative agriculture, crops and the likes. But what we wanted to work on is also this other area. Let me see if I can also share on Google Earth. I'm not sure you're seeing this though. On this other screen, I can show you how this looked like some years ago. Well, this area was effectively abandoned, and it was an old orchard, but it got covered with invasive species, and nothing could grow there. You can actually see sort of when we clear this area, these are the only remaining trees that were able to survive under the cover of these invasive species. And so what we've done here was just clearing the area and dividing in lots. And in 3 lots, we actually have an ancient orchard, a native woodland with the old species that were once covering this region of Italy, but they got substituted over the years. And then in this large part here, we have an agroforestry project where we're combining crops on the ground with shrubs and other type of trees, fruit trees and perennial trees. And the purpose of this project really was to show that there is value in agriculture behind the traditional farming activities that today, at least in European economies, are not really viable if not for the state subsidies. So what I was looking for is a scheme that allowed small projects like this one to monetize the potential carbon value of this area. Again, the other parts of the farm, we're working with other programs. But in this part of the area, I wanted to demonstrate that there is value in planting trees. And the idea is that if we can make it visible, right, a lot of other farmers might actually consider, there's a chance here. I can actually use some of my fields to actually grow trees, especially the areas that are not currently being used, like this one. This was abandoned for decades. So I can use this residual land and plant trees, and there would be some economic value in it, and I can make a living out of it. So this is really a demonstration project that aims at showing that there is that value. And so it was fundamental to have a scheme to monetize these carbon credits. And I found Open Forest Protocol is the most credible scheme for small projects like this. And I'm very happy so far with the experience.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aldo. That was an amazing transition, actually, into our questions for the evening. So thank you for that seamless transition about small scale projects and what you were all bringing to the table. We can just kind of go in a circle and have a conversation, essentially. But my first question for all of you is, what were the factors that prompted, and a lot of you already touched on this, but more specifically, prompted your community to begin forestation? And what factors contributed to the creation of your projects? Climate, social factors, financial factors. What is the root of these community projects that are scaling all over the world, and you guys as examples? So that's the first question. Whoever wants to kind of start can just jump in, or I'll pick my first victim.
Okay, I'll kick off.
Go for it.
So in answer to that question, I suppose there's several parts. Probably like everyone sitting here and hopefully millions of people around the world being concerned about the effects of climate change on everything, including us, is a big factor. On a smaller scale, but equally important, Connie will just introduce this one again.
Who everyone here saw.
There's a reason we got her out. So she is an orphan baby spectacled flying fox, which are endangered in Australia.
There we go.
They're only here in New Guinea, and she's stealing the show. So where that segues in is we've been wildlife carers for 20 years each.
25.
We actually met through bats, through a bat conference, which is a long story. It doesn't matter here. And I suppose part of what we're getting at is, as we look at forest clearing in Australia and many parts of the world, we're lucky enough to live in an area where the forests aren't being cleared. In fact, they're growing by natural means and a lot of human hands. It's one thing to raise these animals. It's quite easy to do. It doesn't matter if it's bats or wallabies or reptiles, doesn't matter. They need habitat to go back to. So I suppose the big driving force with us is, in our small way, if we can provide more authentic habitat, what we call pre-clearing for agriculture in areas we can, it benefits not just the bats, but any other animals that should be in that area. Probably we're fairly unique in our density. We planted almost 7,000 trees a hectare. The reason we do that is because rainforest here plants itself at 10,000 trees a hectare. It's very dense. That gets expensive. It's very labor intensive. It's about every 1.2 meters we plant a stem. Also, we use maximum diversity method, which was alluded to earlier. We plant on this project about 70 species, and we plant the understory, the canopy, and the emergent layer all at once, hopefully to save several decades in the regeneration of rainforest. We're lucky enough to have mapping, government mapping, showing best estimates of what species were there prior to clearing. And as Connie said earlier, the landowners we're planting on, lovely couple, they found us. We went and had a chat, drank some wine, got out the GPS, mapped it. Yeah, it was feasible. They do a lot of the prep work with us with tractors, and we're in the last stages now of full government protection for the planting area, which goes on the title deed of their property, meaning it can never be cleared, which is pretty important to us. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
there you go.
Thank you so much. Can we, yeah, you'll have to show the little baby bat again toward the end, just in case anybody missed it. Stole the show, and it's completely true. It's a wonderful way to make a point about conservation. That's wonderful. Thank you guys so much.
Just, I'll throw one other bit in about this bat and her species. 3 years ago, they became listed as an endangered species. And there was 1/3 of their entire population wiped out in one day due to a mass heat event in 2019. And so every life now is absolutely precious for us to get out there. And yeah, it's, as Dave said, that habitat is just vital for us to get more habitat for them to save the entire species. So yeah, huge.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much. That was great. Daniel, I'd love to know what prompted your project, what brought it out from the community. Tell us.
Well, yeah, I would like to go back to 2002. Well, yeah, that is when our founder said, I didn't want to stand idly by any longer, because he saw what our Australian fellows already said, the degrading of nature and also the climate change. And yeah, nothing was going on. So the focus wasn't on climate protection. And he said, well, I have to do something. And that is when he bought a plot of land and planted trees. And one of his business mates said, wow, that's a really cool idea. Unfortunately, I don't have time. Here you have 100 euros. Please plant some trees for me too. And this is how he started his business. He said, well, many companies are interested in planting trees and helping to improve nature. And so that is was 2007. He founded the company Plant My Tree. At that time, it wasn't so much about biodiversity. It was just planting as many trees as possible, and also in both the companies, but coming to the site, also helping with the planting. Yeah, and what we found later was also that it's not just good to plant trees, it's also good to protect the trees. And that is when we start our foundation, so a non-profit organization, just to have the legal security. So we transferred our planting plots into our foundation, so that these plots are secure, not into this harvesting and planting cycle. They're out of the business, and this is our aim, that the trees can grow forever and never been harvested again. And with our plot in Großlindau was the same procedure. We bought this plot of land, although it's a quite dry region in this part of Germany, but there's a channel nearby, so we saw, okay, there's a good chance also for different trees to grow, and we transferred into our foundation and offered tree planting with us.
Wonderful. You guys really got started from the ground up, which is amazing. Thank you for sharing. Aldo, I'd love to hear how the project came about and where that origination came from.
Well, as I mentioned, the aim is really to create a demonstration project, one that the rest of the community can look at and see how it can tangibly work. And to work, it has to be sustainable from an economic standpoint. Otherwise, it becomes just a sort of a pet project. It becomes sort of a charitable project. And so carbon farming is making itself known, but there are various different aspects of it. One is actually tackling the main agricultural and farming issue. As I say, the industry is in a dire state. There is a challenge given that traditional farming is now addicted to fertilizers and sort of fossil fuel based inputs, and the greater costs of those, and the need to have greater yields, and at the same time the quality of soils is degrading, is reducing. And so the idea was to launch a program that was showing all of the tools available in the carbon farming book, all the regenerative agricultural tools. But again, agriculture is a traditional sector, and you look around the community around us, for example, is made of sort of middle-aged, older farmers who do not really see any reason or any alternative in what they're doing. Just show them about the sort of not tilling the ground or just using cover crops, and they're like, why is that? It's always been done in a different way. So the project is really about doing things in a different way, and then showing the books to everyone, and so that they can see. When it came about one particular plot in our farm, which had a very high carbon content in the ground because of the invasive species that I was talking about, we couldn't find any farming program that was going to increase the carbon content, which is the aim of carbon farming. So that's why actually we thought about agroforestry and trees, because only when you reach a certain limit in terms of carbon content in farming, the only next level available is actually growing trees. Then that allows to protect the amount of carbon in the soil. And so we launched this agroforestry project. But again, for that actually to be a demonstrable project, and for other people actually to think, okay, we might want to do it again, and then unlock the value of small plots, small residual abandoned farming land converted into forestry projects, you need to be able to show that a farmer can make a living out of it. And given that there is, in any case, lots of input costs, preparation of the soil, in our case, we had to fence against sort of wild animals. It is a large part of the site. You have actually to show recurring revenues coming from it. And this is an issue because currently, at least in Europe, sort of woodlands are not worth anything. And this is why they're abandoned, particularly the small ones. And there's this sort of wrong misconception that there is no value in woods apart from just sort of fire logs or something. So in other project, we are launching alternatives. So we're launching a biochar project to show you can actually do other things with the woods apart from just sort of setting them on fire. So, but this one in particular was about, okay, let's demonstrate that one can actually contribute to the bottom line of an entire farm by setting some land aside and growing some trees. And of course, this can be done in various ways. So with agroforestry, you can also maximize the value of the biodiversity there and maintain the quality of the ground and make productive use, because some of these trees, the fruit trees, will actually make sort of products that will contribute again to the bottom line. But none of this can stand on its own legs unless there is a revenue coming from the fact that you're going to be tending those trees and you are not using that land for traditional farming, but instead for carbon farming through trees. So this is why it's fundamental to have those credit systems working, so you can actually show them visibly to other investors. And I would expect a great following once these projects come to life and are successful.
Awesome. Thank you, Aldo. That was a great transition into, once again, you're offering me really good transitions here tonight, into the next question, which is about, OFP and how we are, trying to help folks scale forestation around the world and what that looks like. So I'd love to, how did everyone find OFP? How has OFP been integral to the scaling of your project and the ability to have a small scale project reaching global audiences in the carbon credit market sense, but also in the sense of having, that data and that MRV out there in the world like that. So I'm very curious. Love to hear your thoughts. Let's start with Daintree Life again for this one.
Fairly brief on this one. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, so how's it been integral? So you guys actually found us. Thanks, Nigel Barford. We had a website, of course, and Facebook page, and Nigel reached out and we started chatting and then more chatting. The benefits I see is, for all of us, is it's a global exposure. It's a very transparent exposure. Let's just say there are other organizations that aren't quite so transparent. I see a huge value in the whole monitoring, the sample plots. We know here in tropical Northern Australia, if you turn your back on a tree, it grows. It's really fast growth. We get some of our trees we put in at knee high, and they can be 8 meters in 4 years because we have constant rain and warmth. However, that's all guesswork. So people say to us, how fast does that species grow, or this one? By having the OFP, the Forester app, and doing that every 6 months and then every year, we're going to get some very hard data on how those species actually perform in that soil, on that land. We find that fascinating. Hopefully others do too around the world, because it's measurable, and it's actually a joy to use the app. Again, Nigel talked us through it the first time after onboarding, and it's easy to use, and you can't cheat. We all know that.
Yeah.
Because it's geofenced. It's easy to use, and I just give a big shout out again to Nigel Barford for helping us on board and answering all of our endless questions. Yes,
it's been superb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think
shout out to Nigel.
Yeah. The other massive thing that OFP has provided for us is the way we fund everything for our project. well, it comes from many different sources, but one of them is things like corporate sponsorships and government grants and funding like that. And what I've found is since we've been a part of OFP, simply being able to say to people, you know, because they all, when you're asking for, you know, tens of thousands of dollars, people want to know, well, are you going to spend it the way you say you are? And being able to say all of our planting is being now monitored through OFP, it just gives an extra level of credential for people to basically go, okay, yep, we can actually see what's going on as well. And we found, especially a couple of our corporate sponsors, when we first talked to them about it, one of them, we were actually doing a Zoom meeting, and he's already checking it out while we're still talking to him in the Zoom meeting. He's already on OFP, checking out our site, checking out. It was after our first lot of data had been uploaded, and he was like, oh, okay, yep, I can see all this, and I can see you doing what you say you do. So it's that validation for everybody else as well. You know, it's their money and they want to see it right. So, yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, thank you guys so much. That was great. And yeah, shout out to Nigel. Nigel's a hero. I don't know if he's listening, but Nigel's a hero. I'll tell him that too. Thank you guys so much. Daniel, I'd love to hear how did we find you? How did you find us? How has OFP been integral to your project?
Yeah, wow, that was actually lucky shot, yeah, I would say, because we also have a consulting part in Plant My Tree. So we offer carbon footprint calculation, reduction strategies, and companies or who work with us, they want to use the planted trees to offset their emissions. And we could offer this for some projects, but with others, we saw, okay, would be nice to have certified carbon credits. And last year, there was the release of the new standard, ISO standard 14068, about carbon neutrality. And that was a big thing. We had a look into it, and they said, well, if you want to offset emission, the entity should ensure that those carbon credits are generated under a carbon crediting program. So, and we thought, okay, can we establish our own carbon crediting program? That was one of our questions we had. And we saw, wow, that's a huge thing. We don't have the manpower to do it, and also the finances to do it. Okay, then let's go somewhere else. Let's see what's on the market, because you need also to have a listed registry. It needs to be certified. So you see that these are financial contribution factors you have to take into consideration. And we found that either for local ones, local crediting programs or certifiers, either they charge a lot as upfront costs, or their project timeline is very stretched. So we couldn't start our projects right away as crediting programs, which was a little bit of a bummer. And we thought, then there were others who said, okay, you could start with us, but then you need to have a certain size in hectares. So with smaller projects wasn't available. And with a little bit of research at Google, we found OFP. And actually from the first look at the website, it looked very transparent for us, and also the methodology and everything. No upfront costs. We thought, wow, that is actually really good for us. It suits perfectly, and that's how we got in contact with you guys.
It's wonderful. Thank you, Daniel. We're glad to have you here as well. Aldo, you're up next. Share with us
Well, yeah, I
how
guess the
we're
experience has been a
here.
bit of the same for everyone. In my case, I was looking for two schemes, a soil carbon scheme to monetize the increase in carbon in the soil from the regenerative agriculture program, and then a forestry carbon scheme. The issue with this carbon scheme for forestry was size. And again, sort of as a demonstration project, we actually spent a lot to the baseline on biodiversity and carbon things, so we could actually have afforded paying all this high cost of certification with another schemes. But then the point is different. Nobody would have followed, right? No one can do this on a scale up. And so it was fundamental to find a scheme that was suitable for small plots. And I think sort of the no fixed cost, no entry fees is the most fundamental factor that actually allows this to scale up, because then you can list in projects that have even sort of half an hectare in size. And this is unthinkable if you are under one of the other schemes. And so that is the main thing. Then, to be honest, for the purposes of just demonstrating that there are revenues available, other schemes that are less diligent, in theory, could even be better, right? Easier for the developer. But then I think they will not be sustainable. And what I liked about the OFP approach, that apart from this sort of smart and unique approach to size, there's also this data-driven strategy behind that makes the system very, very sustainable. You can actually see it lasting a long time, because it's not just about one particular scheme and the uniqueness of it. It's just the data underneath. And so over the years, this can last. And it's fundamental for a project to actually choose a partner that will be there in 10 years' time. So the data will be there in 10 years' time. And it's the way the OFP system works actually gives me the better chances actually of showing over the long term that the system works.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aldo. Yeah, I agree. I think the scalability factor of and also the long-term factors of OFP are what make it most viable for projects in a sense. But I am not the expert here. Lillian is on the project side. So I'm actually gonna defer to Lillian and Arlene for two questions here, just to get a little bit of insight into the project process first, and then some of like the high quality carbon credit generation when we're talking about the carbon credit side of things in the protocol. And then we'll end with one final project question for you guys. So Lillian, we've talked to the projects, we've heard about, all their processes and where they're coming from around the world. I guess it will probably be great to hear for the audience of, what kind of forest projects are welcome on OFP, a brief, overview of the methodology, and how can projects kind of, access the protocol and get started, if they are a small scale project as well, just like all of these folks here today.
I'd like to bounce this question to Arlene, just to dive deep on the eligibility criteria of the projects that we currently partner with and on board. But just to give a general overview, we're very passionate about projects that also care about the communities that are within the region that they implement this particular project. We also partner with farmers, agroforestry systems, like Aldo mentioned. So there's no limit on the size. But when there's specific eligibility criteria that each project has to meet, that Arlene will speak more about before I dive deeper into what the onboarding process looks like.
Yeah, so maybe for the eligibility criteria, we have about, I would say, 20 to 25 eligibility criteria that we normally share with the project developers prior to onboarding them, to make sure that their forest project matches our criteria. And most of these are pretty stringent, but I'll give you a few. So typically you can't have a monoculture project. So this is a big one, because in some of other standards you can onboard monoculture projects, but with OFP, we really want to grow these biodiverse and resilient forests. So this is one of the criteria. Then you shouldn't have like deforestation in the past 10 years on the project area. There's a minimum 3 to 5 tree species that you need to plant, which ties in with no monoculture. And of course, there's all the additionality claims that need to be verified on our side. So just to tie in with what Lillian was saying, in terms of the process, we send you these eligibility criteria. We discuss together. Then you can send us your KML file eventually for us to do a first check. Or you can be onboarded straightforward on the platform and register your project and apply for whitelisting. And so during this whitelisting process, you have to answer, I would say, about 60 to 70 questions that are really targeted towards your project. And then we are able to evaluate if your project is eligible and matches our criteria based on your answer. And oftentimes we have some kind of back and forth during the evaluation if we need additional information to make sure that we understand very well your project. And at the very end of this process, which can take like a few weeks to a month or months and a half, depending on your project's responses, then you basically have a decision of yes or no, your project is eligible to be registered for carbon financing on OFP. And then, like, jumping back to Lillian, this is also when she onboards the projects. It's also the work that Nigel has been doing, as Daintree was mentioning. So there's this process where we accompany you. We present the dashboard, the mobile app, and we're always here, like, if you have any questions. So yeah, maybe Lillian, you can jump back on this step of the onboarding once you're whitelisted.
Absolutely. So what happens is for the partnership lead to a specific continent, jump on a call with you, and we, basically take you through how our technology works. And so we are very much involved with your onboarding to make sure that your project is a success for the long term. So at any point in time, you have any questions, have any difficulties with either registering projects on your RFP dashboard or how to navigate the Forest for Mobile application, you could always reach myself, Nigel, or my other colleagues on email or WhatsApp as well. So basically monitoring happens every 6 months for the first 2 years and every year after that. And carbon credits are generated and issued in form of assets annually. So, as your trees grow every year, you generate incremental amount of credits. This is then use that to get access to carbon financing for the long term. So that is generally what the process looks like. And for those that are listening, if you're in Africa, you're very interested, you don't know how to get started, please go to our website, submit a question or your contact, and I'll be happy to reach out to you and have that initial call on how we could get started together and how we could partner to ensure the success of your project.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for the background on OFP. Hopefully that helped anyone who's watching or listening later about how you can access OFP, like all of these projects today have been doing and are, scaling and planting and doing the work on the ground. And so my final project for folks is, as a project operator, how do you see forestation scaling in the next few decades as part of this kind of global regeneration movement that is happening, climate action that's happening, these things that, we know that we need to be able to scale, we need to be able to finance, especially at this moment in time. And so, yeah, how do you see this coming from your perspective, and what needs to be done more in that sense as well? Would be awesome to hear. So Dave and Connie, take it away.
Yeah. I see, and I guess hopefully, some of this might be a lot of hope too, but I think over the coming years, there's going to be a lot more re-veg. People are starting to wake up and become really, really worried about climate change. You just have to turn on the news every night and see there's record-breaking weather events all over the world. And so I think people are getting more scared, getting more worried, taking more action. So I do think revegetation is going to become a bigger thing, you know, and yeah, certainly hope it is. And a lot of that's going to come down to the governments as well of every country sitting back and going, okay, the world's in a mess and we need to do whatever we can to change it. So I look in our area here, there's 3 organisations just in the far north Daintree area. There's 3 of us that are doing revegetation work. We're quite small, and one of the other organisations we've recently had passed on to Nigel, and they've just been onboarded with OFP as well. So, you know, they're doing a lot larger scale than us, and we know, and we're sort of having communication with other people throughout Australia who are doing re-veg. So it is definitely growing, getting more on board with OFP. You know, hopefully that can happen. But anything, real action on the ground, getting those trees in the ground, the carbon sequestration is the big thing. Yeah. So, yeah. That's about all I can say on it.
Here, here. And I second all of that. Daniel, I'd love to hear from your perspective in Germany and for your project. What does the future of forestation look like?
What we see is that companies, they still have a high interest in planting trees. We thought maybe because of the economy is going a little bit down here, maybe that's also a little bit decreasing with the planting trees, but we don't see this. They're still coming. They still want to plant with us. What we also see is the CSRD, that is the Corporate Responsibility Reporting Directive, so a directive for Europe. It will create a higher interest in carbon removal projects because companies are interested in also reporting their positive impacts on nature. And on the other hand, there's also the government. The government pushes the reforestation and afforestation under the umbrella of nature regeneration law. And so, it's incites to plant a lot of trees, also from government side, government funded. But then, it also creates a problem because there's a high demand at the tree nurseries to get all the trees. And then what we found that sometimes even tree nurseries, they have problems to for the tree supply for us. And so we founded our own tree nursery, so just to avoid this problem. Because of the growth, we said, well, we want to grow as well with OFP. We have 2 more projects in the pipeline in Germany to start, and also a bigger one in Serbia, 100-hectare big, 500,000 trees. So we can start this off very soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Daniel. And last but certainly not least, I know although you're gonna bring us home perfectly because you always have perfect transitions. But tell us about the future of forestation from your perspective.
Well, I think it's easy for us to get excited on this call because we all love nature and trees, and so we are just sort of how to say all on the same page. But we have to be careful. Reforestation has not made it the best name for itself in the wider industry, and so I think there is a requirement for quality. Large projects have had several issues which have left also some investors skeptical, some regulators, even some part of the public about sort of the risk of greenwashing in this project. So we have to be very, very careful as an industry. That's one. The second one, certainly the need for sort of unlocking these small kind of residential or sort of mid-scale projects is fundamental to diversify, and so that we're not just dependent on the massive projects. Ultimately, though, the impact, I think, is going to be made by these industry becoming an investable asset class. So elsewhere in my business activity, I'm actually making the case that all investments in infrastructure, all investment in productive activities, they need to be carbon neutral and nature positive. And this sort of I think the institutional investors that are backing the global economy, they understand the basic concept for the economy to be sustainable. We have to maintain the same stock of natural capital over generations, right? Otherwise, it's just not sustainable. Means just that, right? It can sustain itself over time. So the forestry projects can play a big part in this. There's no silver bullet. There's many activities that need sort of parts of the sustainability agenda that needs to be nailed down. Forestry has to become, though, an investable asset class, not just commercial forestry, but this type of forestry, and with biodiversity purposes, and I think there is a great opportunity. Technology is also helping, and nature tech is coming up and is making these projects viable. It's connecting everyone, so you have a lot of good driving factors. But I really think that we need to see that asset class become a mainstream investable destination for large institutional investors to then see the real impact of reforestation on a global scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a perfect ending, as I predicted. So
You
thank
did
you,
that
Aldo. That was amazing. That was perfect. Yes, the natural asset class is definitely something that is scalable with, I think, the technology that we have nowadays, especially using blockchain, which is what OFP is built on. We're built on a blockchain foundation to make sure that that is, transparent, immutable data that we're creating carbon credits with. And that's deep topic for, maybe our next webinar coming up, which is a great topic idea. So thank you for the idea as well, Aldo. But this was amazing today to meet all of you and to have you all on as projects. This will be, a saved recording of the webinar on our YouTube channel. So please go check it out. And just, keep in touch with everybody on the OFP Atlas, because that's where the projects are living online right now. So yeah, thank you guys so much, and everybody have a great night or day wherever you are.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, everyone. Nice
Thank you,
being here.
everyone. Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.